Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. There are lessons you learn in school, and there are lessons you can't learn from any book. Today in the rLounge, never work for family for free, and never assume the person managing your future has your best interests at heart. I refused to babysit my aunt's kids for free, so she canceled my college scholarship fund. Now she desperately needs my help because of this. I said no. I graduated high school with decent grades and had my whole future mapped out. My grandfather died when I was 12, but before that, he set up a college fund for me. It wasn't a fortune, but it was around $85,000, enough to cover most of a 4-year degree at a state school. My aunt had been the trustee since he passed. She's my mom's older sister and always acted like she was doing me this huge favor by managing it. The summer after graduation, she called me up asking if I could watch her 3 kids while she worked on some projects around the house. Her kids were 4, 7, and 9 at the time. I figured, sure, why not? I had nothing else going on and it's family, right? I'd help out here and there before heading off to college in the fall. Except here and there turned into 4 to 5 days a week, 8 to 10 hours a day. I was basically a full-time nanny. The kids were fine. That's not the issue. But I was spending my entire summer inside her house while my friends were doing road trips and working actual jobs that paid them. I had no money saved up for college expenses beyond tuition. No spending money, no emergency fund, nothing. After about 3 weeks of this, I brought it up casually. I mentioned that most babysitters in our area charge around $15 an hour and maybe we could work something out. She laughed. Actually laughed in my face and said family doesn't charge family. Then she reminded me about everything she'd done for me over the years, managing my college fund and being there after my grandfather died. I was getting frustrated. I'd missed out on a summer program that could have looked good on applications for internships. My friends had stopped inviting me places because I was never available. I was exhausted from chasing around 3 kids all day and had nothing to show for it. By the time we hit the middle of the summer, I was done. I sat her down and told her I couldn't keep doing this unless she paid me. I explained that I needed to work and save money before college started. I had textbooks to buy, supplies, all the little things that add up. I wasn't trying to be difficult. She lost her mind. She started talking about how selfish I was, how I was using the family, how I was ungrateful I'd become. I fired back that I'd been used as free labor for weeks, and I was the ungrateful one? Her husband just sat there on the couch, didn't say a word, didn't defend me, didn't defend her, just sat there like a lump. 5 days later, my mom called me. My aunt had withdrawn herself as trustee and emptied the college fund. Apparently, there was some clause buried in the paperwork from when my grandfather set it up that allowed the trustee to revoke funds if the beneficiary showed moral unfitness. It was old language from decades ago that nobody even thought would actually be used. She claimed my greed and disrespect toward family qualified as moral unfitness. I was in shock. I couldn't even process it at first. That money was supposed to be mine. My grandfather set it up for me specifically, and she just took it because I wouldn't be her free nanny anymore? My mom was furious with her sister, but my aunt wouldn't budge. She said I'd shown my true colors and didn't deserve the money. My mom tried to reason with her, tried to get other family members involved, but she'd already made up her mind. I didn't beg. I wasn't going to grovel to someone who'd just screwed me over that badly. Instead, I enrolled in community college. I picked up 2 part-time gigs to pay for classes and living expenses. My dream university was off the table. Everything I'd worked toward in high school was gone because my aunt decided to punish me for setting a boundary. The next 2 years were brutal. I was working 30 to 35 hours a week while taking a full-time course load. I barely slept. I lived off whatever cheap food I could find. But I kept my GPA above a 3.8 because I knew I'd need it to transfer eventually. I had 0 contact with my aunt during that time. I didn't go to family holidays if I knew she'd be there. I didn't ask about her. I didn't care. My mom would occasionally mention her in passing. That's how I found out my aunt had used about $60,000 out of my college fund to renovate her house. New kitchen, new bathrooms, and a pool in the backyard. A pool. She stole my education fund to put in a pool. The remaining $25,000 apparently went to college funds for her own kids. I was so angry I couldn't see straight for days after finding that out, but I channeled it into working harder. Fast forward to the end of my second year of community college, I applied to transfer to the state university and got accepted with a partial scholarship. Between the scholarship, some grants I qualified for, and my savings, I could make it work. It wouldn't be easy, but I'd done harder things already. I transferred that fall and things started looking up. I made friends, kept my grades up, and found a decent part-time gig on campus. Life was hard, but it was mine. I built it myself without anyone's help. Then my mom mentioned that my aunt's husband had left her. Apparently he'd been cheating for over a year and cleaned out their joint bank accounts before filing for separation. My aunt was struggling financially. I'm not going to lie, I felt a tiny bit of satisfaction hearing that. A few months later, my mom said my aunt had been asking about me. She wanted to talk. I told my mom absolutely not. I had no interest in any conversation with her. I finished my 3rd year strong and lined up a paid internship for the summer. Things were finally coming together. I was proud of what I'd accomplished despite everything. Then she showed up at my apartment. I opened the door one afternoon and there she was. I tried to close the door, but she stuck her foot in and started begging to talk. She looked rough, older than I remembered, stressed, clearly not doing well. I told her she had 1 minute before I called campus security. She launched into this whole story about how her ex-husband left her with massive debt. She'd had to sell the house, the one she renovated with my money. She was renting a small place now and barely scraping by. Her oldest kid had developed some serious medical condition that required expensive treatment. Her insurance wasn't covering most of it. She needed $30,000 for a surgery that couldn't wait. Then she asked me for the money. I just stared at her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This woman stole $85,000 from me, used it to renovate her house and install a pool, and now she was standing at my door asking me for $30,000 because she was in a bad spot. I laughed. A genuine, incredulous laugh. I couldn't help it. The audacity was almost impressive. She started talking faster, saying I was doing well now and had clearly made it work without the college fund, so obviously I didn't need it anyway. She said I should understand that family helps family, that I should be the bigger person, like I've always been during the babysitting hours. Then I told her she had some serious nerve showing up here after what she did. She tried to interrupt, saying it wasn't stealing because it was her right as trustee. I cut her off. I pointed out that she used my inheritance money my grandfather specifically set aside for my education, to put in a pool and remodel her kitchen while I ate ramen and worked myself to exhaustion just to afford community college. She started crying, said her child's health was at stake, that this was life or death. I told her that was terrible and I genuinely hoped her kid would be okay, but it wasn't my problem. She should have thought about her kid's future before she decided to destroy mine over a babysitting dispute. She called me heartless. I told her she taught me well and shut the door in her face. She'd apparently told the entire extended family that I refused to help a sick child and was letting family grudges hurt an innocent kid. Some relatives started calling me cruel and heartless. I posted a single status update laying out exactly what happened. I explained how she stole my college fund because I wouldn't babysit for free, how she used the money for house renovations, and how she never once apologized or tried to make it right. I didn't mention her kid's medical situation specifically because that wasn't the point. The point was her entitlement. Some people got it, others didn't. I didn't care anymore. I blocked my aunt's number and the numbers of anyone who kept harassing me about it. The family drama eventually died down. I heard through my mom that she managed to work out some kind of payment plan for her kid's medical treatment, so the child was getting help. I was glad about that. I'm not a monster, but it was never my responsibility to fix her problems, especially after what she did to me. I started my senior year and things were good. I spent years working twice as hard as I should have had to because of her. I missed opportunities, lost sleep, and struggled financially because she felt disrespected. And when her own choices caught up with her and she needed help, she came to me expecting I'd just hand over money like nothing happened. That's not how it works. Update 1. It's been a few months since my aunt showed up at my apartment begging for money. Things calmed down after I blocked half the family and posted what actually happened. Most people stopped bothering me about it. I started my senior year and honestly, life was pretty good. The drama had mostly died off. I heard through my mom that my aunt managed to work out some payment plan on her kid's medical treatment, so at least the child was getting help. I was genuinely relieved about that. Whatever issues I have with her, I never wanted her kids to suffer. My uncle, her ex-husband, reached out to me. We'd never been close. He was always just kind of there during family gatherings, never really said much. During the whole babysitting blow-up, he just sat on the couch and didn't defend anyone. I honestly hadn't thought about him in years. He sent me a message asking if I'd meet him for coffee. I was suspicious as hell. I figured maybe she'd send him to guilt trip me, or to try to get money another way. But I was also curious, so I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop near campus. When I got there, he looked uncomfortable, like really uncomfortable. We did the awkward small talk thing for a few minutes before he finally got to the point. He apologized for not standing up for me back when everything went down. Said he was a coward, and that she ran the household, which I guess was his excuse for being useless. Then he told me something I wasn't expecting. He said he didn't leave her just because of an affair. He left because he found out what she did with my college fund and couldn't live with it anymore. The affair came later, after he'd already mentally checked out of the marriage. He explained that he didn't know about the fund situation until he was doing their taxes. He found paperwork showing the withdrawal and the transfers. When he confronted her about it, she admitted everything. She told him she'd emptied my college fund and justified it by saying I disrespected her and didn't deserve the money. He said he was horrified. He told her she needed to make it right and pay me back. She refused. That's when their marriage really started falling apart. He said he'd already been unhappy for years, but finding out she'd stolen from her own niece over a babysitting dispute was the breaking point. He started separating their finances and planning his exit. The affair happened after all that, when he'd already decided the marriage was over. But here's the part that really got me. He said she didn't just use my money for house renovations. She also dumped about $20,000 into some multi-level marketing scheme she'd gotten involved with. She lost it all within 6 months. The pool and kitchen remodel cost around $40,000 combined. The rest went into her kids' college fund, but even that wasn't the full amount she'd claimed. He had documentation. Bank statements, receipts, records of her multi-level marketing expenses. Everything. He'd kept copies when he left because he knew she'd try to screw him in the divorce. He offered to give me all of it. I took it. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but having proof felt important. He said he felt guilty for not doing more at the time, and this was the least he could offer. He couldn't pay me back himself. She really had drained their accounts, and he was rebuilding his own life. But he wanted me to have the truth documented. I went home and went through everything. Bank statements showing the exact date she withdrew the fund, credit card receipts for the renovations, the whole folder of expenses for her multi-level marketing business that never made a dime. It was all there in black and white. She'd blown through my education fund on a pool, a kitchen, and a pyramid scheme. A week or so later, one of my cousins reached out, one of the neutral ones who hadn't taken sides during the initial drama. She told me that my aunt had been going around telling people I was cruel and vindictive, that I was holding a grudge over nothing. She was playing the victim hard, saying she'd made a mistake, but I wouldn't forgive her. My cousin asked if I wanted to set the record straight publicly. I thought about it for a couple of days. Part of me wanted to just let it go and move on, but another part of me was tired of her controlling the narrative and making me look like the bad guy. So I made a post in our extended family group chat, not on Facebook or anything public, just the family chat that most of our relatives are in. I laid out the entire timeline. The free babysitting that turned into full-time unpaid labor, her stealing the college fund when I asked to be paid, the house renovations, the multi-level marketing scheme. I included screenshots of the bank statements with the account numbers blacked out, just the dates, amounts, and what the money was used for. The group chat exploded. I'm talking hundreds of messages within an hour. Relatives who'd sided with her were suddenly backtracking. Others were furious with her. A few people still tried to defend her, saying she was going through a hard time or everyone makes mistakes. I responded once and only once. I said stealing $85,000 from your niece isn't a mistake. It's a choice, and she'd do it again if she could. The fallout was intense. Several relatives cut contact with her completely. My grandmother, her own mother, told her she was disappointed in her, which in our family is basically the worst thing you can hear. My aunt went from being the victim in her own story to being isolated from most of the family. My mom told me she wasn't doing well, but I didn't feel guilty. The rest of the semester was busy in a good way. I was applying for graduate programs and actually getting responses. I had options. As I headed into my final semester, I barely thought about her anymore. She'd become background noise in my life, someone who'd tried to ruin my future and failed. I was graduating early, starting a graduate program in the fall with full funding, and building the life I'd always wanted. She didn't just take money. She deliberately used her position as trustee to punish you for not continuing to provide unpaid labor. That wasn't about moral fitness or family values. It was about control. The fact that she spent that money on renovations, a multi-level marketing scheme, or her own kids' funds make it even clearer that this was never about protecting your grandfather's wishes. You did what you had to do after that. When she later showed up asking you for money, you weren't obligated to fix the situation she created through her own choices. Feeling empathy for her child doesn't mean you're required to hand over tens of thousands of dollars to someone who already proved that she'd exploit you when it suits her. What would you have done? Let us know in the comments. And thank you for joining us today in the rLounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time. And please, put your chair back where you found it.